Good evening. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's Dr. Ramon Goings with the Done Dissertation. In today's video, we're going to talk about the 3 lessons that got me off the dissertation struggle bus. And so while people are coming in, tuning into the live, today's video, I want to talk about my own experience a little bit with you all and teach you some of the lessons that I learned so that you don't have to make the same mistakes that I made going through the dissertation process and really my journey as a doctoral student. So if you can, if you're watching this, if you can share this with 1 or 2 people that you know that could benefit from this video, who are doctoral students who are just trying to figure out how do I get through this process, please hit the share button and send this to someone who could benefit. And again, we're going to talk about the 3 lessons that took me off the dissertation struggle bus. And for those of you who are just getting introduced to me, I'm Dr. Ramon Goings, founder of the Done Dissertation. We demystify the dissertation process so that doctoral students can write and defend their dissertation in record time. And again, right now is this time of year where you're starting to see your friends and everyone start to defend. And I know for some of you all, if you have not gotten to that point where you're ready for defense, or if you've been stuck for years, right now is a time when you feel a little anxiety. So I want to tell you a little bit about my journey in order to give you some strategy on how you can navigate the process without the headache. So again, if you can share this with 1 or 2 people, that would be perfect. And so from my doctoral student experience, I was a doctoral student at Morgan State University. One of the stories that I had, instances that I had as a student, was during my first year as a doctoral student. And this is the things that happen to you as a student that sometimes set you up later for your dissertation, right? So I was a doctoral student and I was going through my coursework, and I had a class with a very hard professor. This professor loved to carve up people's writing. And he always challenged us, right? And so in my first class with this professor, I submit my paper, and from undergraduate to master's degree, I was a good writer, I thought. And then I get that first paper back, and literally I got X's throughout the paper. And literally on page 3, he put a big X through the entire paper and literally told me, he said, "Well, I'm going to stop right here. You need to see an editor and writing coach in order to improve this immediately." And I just couldn't believe it, right? I had gone through my education career and I thought, was a good writer. But this professor told me that indeed I was struggling in my writing, and he had a solution, but he thought that I needed some work. But like many students, I didn't want to take his advice, and that way, at the beginning, I was not even too confident. I just didn't know what I didn't know, and being willing to get help. And so I really, part of that was me not trying to seek help, was also my lack of confidence. Because I find that the more confident you are in your work, you're more willing to go and seek help, because you know that help is only going to help you improve, which then builds your confidence even more as a writer. But I tell you, I don't know if anybody else, if any of you have had this happen where someone has carved up your paper, please drop it in the comments, say "me too," or "that's me." Say "that's me," just so I know that I'm not the only one who's experienced this, because I know this has happened to a number of doctoral students out here. And again, for many folks, it can be disheartening when it does happen, right? Because we all, again, think that we're great writers. And this professor ended up being my best supporter through the process. But initially, it just started out with a big X on my paper, say, "Ramon, you're going to need to see your editor and author, writing coach, in order to improve this." And Dr. Juanita Speaks on Instagram says, "Me too." Whew. Yeah, it's just it's unfortunately part of the process to improve. But I know, like a lot of folks, it really does something to you. And even for folks who have earned their doctorate, those experiences like that really do impact you, even when you're trying to write for publication and all those things like that. And so B. Phyllis Renee says, "That's me." Yeah. Again, I'm telling this part of my story because I think people see the final product. And for those who don't know, like, I'm a professor. I've written over 60 publications. I've been very successful as a writer, but it didn't always start like that. And sometimes I think as a doctoral student, you're always thinking about the final product. Like, how do I get this paper perfect? How do I get this right? And you miss sometimes the steps along the way. And part of that step is to experience a little bit of failure. And then from there, you learn from it and then grow. And that was very important for me to get through that process. And so again, from that experience, from my first class, that professor put the X through my paper. It just destroyed me. But what I learned was I didn't know it all. And I had to be willing in order to put the work in order to improve. And so here's what it looks like. And so again, I'm telling you my story, but this is not necessarily what you have to do. It can be very helpful though. So, when I had this professor that said that, it was like, "Oh, you're not a strong writer." What I came to find out, it was not because I didn't know how to write. It was because I hadn't read enough yet. And I see for a lot of doc students, when you're writing your dissertation, I see a lot of students struggle with chapter 2, the literature review, if you're at the proposal phase, or chapter 5 sometimes at the end of your dissertation because you don't know the literature in your area. And so in that experience with my professor, when I really took a chance and just put the paper down and just really read their comments for what it was, I actually found out that they were really trying to tell me that I wasn't reading enough to really know the literature in order to be an informed writer. And so these things go hand in hand. People always say that, I can't write the literature review, but then I ask, have you read enough? And they say, oh, yeah, I've read. And I ask how many articles on your area. And then they say, oh, I've read about 10 or 11. And then after that conversation, I always say, well, who are the key authors in your area? And then I get usually like a stutter, like, I don't know. And then at that point, we know you haven't read enough. And that was my process. So what I did, though, I said, all right, I tell you, I'm a little petty and I'm a little competitive. So when this professor told me that my writing wasn't strong enough, I said, oh, I got to figure this professor out. I'm going to get an A in this class. I got to figure out something. And so what I did is that it took me a while. So in that particular class, I ended up getting a B. But my second year in the doc program, I said, all right, I'm going to really invest the time to do the reading. So what I did is I actually read one journal article every day for the entire second year in my doc program. And I'll repeat that again. I read one journal article every day for the entire year from a peer-reviewed journal article. And I did that for a couple of reasons. Here's why it's effective when you really take time to really focus on your reading. Because one, I wasn't just reading for content, right? So I wanted to learn more about my research area. At that time, I thought I was going to focus on racial identity of Black boys in K-12 schools. Initially, that was what I was going into it with. But what I found out is that as I kept reading, I kept wanting to expand my topic. And then what I started to do is that I not only read for content, I started to read to understand how did these authors think. Again, as academics, the way we communicate oftentimes is through our written word. And so I was like really studying the people that I was reading. And so some of the authors that really informed my work at that time were Dr. Donna Ford. I'm in education, so if you look these folks up, you'll see they're very prominent in education. Dr. Sean Harper, Dr. Sharon Fries-Britt, Dr. Fred Bonner, Dr. Chance Lewis, Dr. Malik Hempfield. Like all these folks are like writers that I was just reading their work, really trying to understand how are they putting these pieces together. And then I also read outside of education because I wanted to see like how do other writers kind of articulate their arguments and really just study the craft of writing. Part of that process, which I do recommend you do, is as a doctoral student, I want you to start, if you don't have your vocabulary together, I want you to start actually reading journal articles and then taking the vocabulary words, looking them up in a dictionary to really understand what these words mean so that you can use them in your own writing. I always say that we're not all built with this idea of like, we know what academic jargon is, right? It's something we have to learn. It's like a foreign language. And so I really took the time to study the craft of writing. And once I did that after my second year, and I started to write during my third year as a doc student, when I was finishing up my coursework, it made the process so much easier. And literally in that professor's class that I had the first year when he carved up my paper, I ended up, by the time I was leaving the program, I actually was out publishing that professor as a student. But it was because not only did I take the time in to do the reading, and then they also saw that I was putting in work, and it actually just started to help me improve my writing and give me drafts and go back and forth. But again, it was something that I needed to do for myself first. I think oftentimes as a doc student, we think the process is about everybody else, but there's actually a journey that you're going through. And then you have to be willing to do all the little steps, which includes reading, which I know is probably the most annoying part of this process because you got to sit down and do it. No one else can do it for you. But that is the part where it truly makes you the scholar that you become. And again, you're trying to generate new knowledge. But first, if you don't know what's happened before, how do you generate something new? Because what you'll find out if you haven't read enough, that you'll just be generating the same thing that's already been published. And so again, from this experience, I started out as a bad writer, and I have the receipt. So if you all want, shoot me a DM. I'll send you a screenshot of the paper where the professor put, you need to see a writing coach immediately. I kept all my papers. So I always try to show people this and tell people so they understand like you're not alone in this part of the process. But what I want you all to consider is that you want to be able to transform and grow throughout the dissertation process. And it was just something when I started reading more, I felt more confident in my writing. And then when I felt more confident in my writing, I was more likely to go see my professor for help. I was more likely to turn that paper in to get feedback. Because I know a lot of you, if you're writing your dissertation, I know a lot of people reach out to us and I ask, well, what's the problem? They say, I'm just too scared to submit. And I just say, like, you'll never finish your dissertation if you don't submit the document. So, and it's not because of what you wrote. It's actually because of how you feel inside, that the work is not perfect, that sometimes you don't feel that you have the ability to be on the level of the scholars that you read. So again, this is my transformation, right? I'm going, start out as a bad writer. I put the work in to improve. The professor started to see it in me and they started to help support me and push me forward. But this is how things kind of turn. When you start going on this path, sometimes things happen in a way that you never would expect. So by the time I was finishing up my doc program, I was actually, professors were sending me their students who were in their first and second year. They're like, go see Ramon. He figured this writing thing out. And what I started to do, I started to help a lot of folks with their writing. So initially started out really being a writing coach for people. But what I was finding, right, people came to me to get their work edited. They wanted just a straight edit of the whatever, a class paper, a lit review, whatever it was. But I kept finding that the more I read their work and we had these conversations, a lot of folks weren't necessarily interested in the edits, which was a piece, right? But they were more interested in how I was thinking about their topic or how I was thinking about the writing or why did I move certain sections in a different order. So then I noticed that I started to be doing a lot more coaching with folks than just pure editing. But what I found out, like for many of you, often people think that the writing is the problem. I want to let you know, actually, contrary to what everybody says, people say you need to sit down and write, and then folks get anxiety about the writing process. It's because the writing part is a piece, but there is the thought process and there's a process just generally that's happening in your doctoral experience. And then sometimes we don't realize how that internally impacts us and how we move through our doctoral experience. And so how this looks and shows up is that a lot of times as doctoral students, you may have this idea that since you wrote it and you believe that it's ready to be submitted to your professor and they get it in their hands, you submit it, that they should turn around and give you feedback in 72 hours or something, like 3 days, 5 days. When in reality, the process actually should let you know that your professors really probably think that they'll get it back to you in 3 to 4 weeks. And again, a lot of times we have these expectations we hold on professors that just impact our experience. And so I started to see that with a lot of the students that I was working with on their paper, because they were expecting that since they wrote it, that it was good. And I want to let you all know that your professors are really just trying to push you in a way to be better. And it's not always that their feedback is trying to like be degrading to you. Some are, but don't get me wrong. There's some professors that are just plain rude and nasty in their work. But a lot of them are really trying to push you to be better. And this is what I want you to do. If you ever get to a point when you've read someone's feedback and you don't know what to do, and you feel some, maybe internally you just feel like discouraged from writing, this is what I want you to do. I actually want you to take a break from that piece of work for a day. I want you to put it down, and I actually want you to do something not related to writing at all, to your dissertation or anything. I want you to actually put it away. This is the process that I use all the time when I get feedback from peer-reviewed journal article reviews. Put the paper away for a day. Do something not related to your dissertation. Enjoy your family. Enjoy something fun. When you come back to it the next day, 24 hours later, and look at those critiques, you actually come back to it with a fresh perspective, and you're not in your feelings about it. Again, the writing can be a very sensitive part of it because I think it comes from us and is very creative, which sometimes we don't give enough credit for writing being a creative experience as academics. We always think about it as scientific, but it's indeed creative. And with that, you want to start thinking about your work as something that's really coming from you, but sometimes you need to take a step away from it so that you can come back to it to really improve it and really take a step back scientifically now and look at, all right, these are the areas that I need to improve. And then once you do that, I promise you the writing process will get so much easier because you'll notice that you'll be waiting for feedback. You'll get the feedback, you embrace it, you take a break, you come back to it, and you get into this rhythm. And before you know it, you start writing drafts or chapters, and it starts to happen so quickly. And like even in my own experience, I started writing my dissertation in August of 2014. And literally by end of November, early December, I had a full draft of my proposal done because I started to get into this process of writing, sitting into my chair, getting the feedback, taking a break, coming back to it, and then critiquing, fixing whatever was critiqued in the paper and moving on and not taking it personally. But I've just seen so many people stuck. And I just want to let you know, now having worked with over 100 clients, that I know what it's like for you to be stuck. And I've seen so many examples of this, but I know that there is another way for you to get through the process. But this is the thing, right? You know that you're stuck. Your chair knows that you're stuck, but meanwhile, you stay stuck, which makes no sense to me. It's like, why not get the help and support that you might need, whether it starts from your chair, but then you might have to go outside of them to get that help to help you kind of break down the process. And again, I guarantee from the clients that I work with, the problem is never the writing. The problem is understanding the process. And with that, that's what the Done Dissertation and our Velocity group coaching program, that's exactly what we help doctoral students do. We help you navigate the dissertation process in record time so that you can write and defend your dissertation and then secure your tenure track faculty position or postdoc. Because again, I know another piece of this process that's slowing a lot of folks up is not because of the writing, it's not because even your mindset, but it's because how do I write my dissertation and try to apply for faculty positions and do all these things at once? And trying to do all that at once can be very anxiety provoking. And so we have found a solution in order to ensure that you don't experience that in your dissertation process. And so again, just to recap for folks who just joined, again, part of my story is that I actually started out not as a great writer. Again, I had a professor, and shout out to Dr. Shockley. We laugh about it now. He's like, he talked to my class last week. He's one of my biggest supporters, but boy, he came after my paper initially, right? And so from there, I had to improve. And so my goal was to become a more informed reader. So again, if you're one that's getting reviews of your writing that are negative, oftentimes because you may not have read enough quite yet. Then from there, I went and became a better reader. And so my next strategy for you all is to really focus and hone in on the reading. And you're not just reading for content, you're reading for how authors are putting sentences together, how those sentences are forming paragraphs, how those paragraphs are forming sections, how those sections are informing the entire article and argument. Once you get to that point, then from there, you can start putting your dissertation together, and it becomes so much easier. And particularly if you have a system to organizing what you read, finding the quote, the gap in the literature becomes so easy. It looks very apparent because you've read enough, and you start to see, oh, this group of authors have focused in this area. Group B has focused in this area, but there's a lane for me that's entirely wide open. And when you find that lane, stick with it, even if it becomes something that hasn't been your area of expertise initially going into your particular topic, because sometimes you find your own little niche within that. So I think you all have the opportunity to do this, but don't get stuck trying to get this thing right by yourself. Get the help that you need. This is exactly why we created the Velocity Group Coaching Program, because we want to support doctoral students to navigate the dissertation process in record time. There is no need for folks to be held in the dissertation process for years on end. Like, I literally have talked to folks recently who have been in the dissertation process alone as long as 7 to 10 years. I actually had somebody at 11 years who have been in the process. And there is no need to keep going through this by yourself when there is support for you. And I would say, if you are interested in getting some support, you know that you need help, you are ready to move forward with your dissertation, I invite you to visit www.velocitydissertation.com to apply for the Velocity Group Coaching Program. We are currently holding enrollment for our January 2022 cohort. And again, we only keep a small amount of students because we want to provide a very premium experience with a lot of support for myself and my coaches to make sure that you not only feel supported getting through the dissertation process, but also so that you can get that faculty position when you finish. And so again, that website is www.velocitydissertation.com, so you can learn more about the Done Dissertation Velocity Group Coaching Program. And so that was really what I wanted to talk about today, but I would love to take any questions. Folks have been on for a while, so I would love to take any questions that you have. Please drop them in the comments. So I'd definitely love to respond. And we're streaming on a number of platforms. So I know I got some folks on Facebook. Thanks, Dr. Bianco. Dr. Bianco tuned in and said, hey, Dr. Goins, always dropping knowledge. I appreciate you, Dr. Bianco. And again, having mentors like Dr. Bianco, she was one of my mentors, has been very helpful in order to learn this process, because again, you don't do it alone. And Lisa Alexander on Facebook says, become a more informed reader. Yeah, that is a big piece of the process, Lisa. Like, I find that folks struggle with that, but it's so important to getting done. And Lisa has a question on Facebook that says, after reading up on your topic, how did you find it helped your lit review? Oh, it helped tremendously, Lisa. Like, literally the process I went through was during my comprehensive exam. We had 30 days to do our comps. And I had read on my topic at that point. Again, I read a lot of articles, but I didn't have it organized in a way that could help me really write a lit review well. And so I took time to really organize my reading. And what I teach in our program is about how to create lit review matrices, but ones that really are helpful to help you see the trends in the literature. And so when I created that and I implemented it in my writing, my lit review became very easy because I was able to see trends in the literature. I was able to see how authors were kind of building a career essentially, because I was able to see authors work over time. Because again, it's like in your area, at least, it's like a conversation that's happening amongst scholars and amongst friends, right? And so like it's like a family function. When you get there first, you might showed up late, but then you're just listening into the conversation, trying to hear what's going on. And then if you know something about the conversation, you jump in, right? And you engage with them in the conversation. But from there, at that point, once you engage with them in the conversation, then you start to figure out, oh, I know what's going on. And I actually can turn this conversation and change the topic. And so when you become an informed reader, Lisa, that is what you end up doing. You end up changing the topic, and then you end up creating a whole new conversation based on your work. Like that is the part that is transformative about research. And I think that's the part that keeps me going, because, sometimes you can get disheartened in this dissertation process and doing research. But when you see that lane open up, but it all comes from this reading experience. And so once you do that, Lisa, I promise you that it will be so clear and so crystal clear that you'll be like, oh, my topic is this. I see where my lane is. This is exactly what I need to do. And Lisa, if you can, drop where you are in the process, because that can be more helpful. I'm assuming you're writing their proposal at some point, but if you can drop where you are, that'd be great. That's a great question, Lisa. So we have a question on LinkedIn, or a comment from Cindy. She says, love your content, currently reading your book. Oh, first, thank you so much. So Cindy has grabbed 14 Secrets to a Done Dissertation, a guide to navigating the dissertation process and finishing in record time. So if you're a doctoral student, not quite at the dissertation process or in it right now, 14 Secrets to a Done Dissertation is a great read. Quick, easy, short, to the point. Like I said, I made the book short on purpose. It's literally 86 pages, 86 pages cover to cover. But I did that because you all are doc students. You have so much to read already. I want to give you something quick and easy that you can use right now to navigate the process. So definitely grab that book. If you visit donedissertation.com, you can grab your copy of the book from us. And so with that, Lisa's question is, she's reading the book and she said, what's your favorite platform or tool to organize lit review article? Excel, Zotero, Notes, etc. So what I like to use is actually Google Forms, because I like Excel, but I don't like typing in Excel. So I need a format that works best for me. And I find that Google Forms works best. And I generate the questions that I want to extract from the articles. And then I'm able to use a Google form to do that. And so this is what I teach in the program. And I get very specific questions that make, when you have to go write your lit review, very easy, because we've done all the pre-work while you're actually searching through the literature and getting more familiar. But I know some folks like Zotero and all those other ones. I'm on a research project right now where the PI of the project, she uses Zotero, and I saw it. It looks really good, but I just don't know. I want to learn it right now, but I may come back to that at some point. But I think for right now, I use Google Forms when I'm reading literature and trying to learn the space, to kind of learn the literature and organize what I've read. And then with Google Forms, it exports into an Excel spreadsheet, so then it makes things easier too. Cindy, for you. So that should work well. Cindy, what do you use right now? If you drop that in the comment. And Lisa said, wow, that's good. Thank you. I'm assuming when I was talking about the lit review and doing the reading, I think that's a big piece of the process. And Lisa says, yes, I have your book too. Great book. Thank you so much for reading. I do really appreciate that. I really appreciate everybody's support on the book. Again, I wanted to make something that was very short and sweet and supportive for doctoral students to get through this process. And so with that, what other questions do you all have? Those are great questions. Oh, Cindy, you use Excel. Okay. That makes sense. Yeah, again, I just don't like Excel. My wife loves Excel. She's a wizard on Excel. Like she knows how to get through that thing. I don't know. It just frustrates me. But she can color code and organize it and do all those things. That's just not my skill set. Sometimes I really just, you got to know what you're good at. And that's not my thing, Excel, necessarily. But Cindy says, I don't really like it. Yeah, it's tough. Again, you have to have a certain kind of just, if it's something that's natural to you, then of course use it. But I don't like it either. But I don't like doing tables in Word either, because then the format gets weird there too. So that's why I use the Google form. And Carrie on Instagram says, yes, she is. Yeah, that my wife Renee is a wizard on Excel. That is her thing. I don't know how she does it, but I just watch her in amazement, because I'm like, I don't know any of this stuff, all the formatting, all that stuff. Other questions, thoughts, comments? This is really good information. I see, yes, Lisa in the proposal. Lisa, if you can, what's tripping you up in the proposal process so far? Are you just starting out or are you further along? And Cindy, you as well. Where are you in the process right now? And folks on Instagram too, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in. Thank you, Carrie, for uh, the comment too. So folks, check out on Instagram. You go to velocitydissertation.com or you click the link in our bio as well to learn more about the Done Dissertation Velocity Group Coaching Program and make sure that you do apply. Any other questions? I'll stay on for another couple minutes and then I'll let folks enjoy the rest of their evening. Chapter 2. Okay, Lisa's on Facebook says she is on chapter 2. That chapter trips up a lot of people. Yeah, chapter 2 can be tough. Again, it comes back to reading because that's one of those things. Like once you read, you're able to put the themes together, the lit review, and it starts to become very easy. Like, and Lisa, I'll give you this, and I talk about this a little bit in the book, but I'll give you a strategy on how to think about like the thought process about chapter 2. Right? Let's imagine for the lit review that let's say roughly you want to write about 30 pages. Really, if you break down 30 pages, it's about, let's say we do six sections of 5 pages each. Now, if you think about if you've read enough literature to find 5 themes from the literature that are centered around your topic becomes very easy. Then all you got to think about is I got to write 6 5-page papers. Now we took that 30 pages, we broke it down to 5. Now you got to knock out 5 pages at a time. And you'd be surprised about how fast and quickly that you will get through writing when you think about it in 5 pages versus when you start thinking about it in 30. And I find that for my folks, and I have busy professionals that work with me, right? And school principals, folks who are running, running their show, business owners, like literally those folks are reading and getting through the dissertation chapter 2 in 1 month, having about between 30 to 50 pages in a chapter 2. Okay, it can get really easier. It can get really easy when you break it down into small pieces. We got to stop thinking about it in these large chunks, in large pieces. And Cindy on LinkedIn says that she's just starting and honing on my topic. Yeah, it's a great point to be in the process. This is why if you read the literature now, it becomes easy to figure out what your dissertation topic should really be. And Cindy, tell a little bit, and if you're still on in the comments about what is your actual topic or what, or like kind of what are you thinking about right now? It'd be very helpful. I could be more helpful there. So Lisa says ensuring that I have themes flowing. Yeah, you have to ensure that you have themes in your lit review. I think a lot of folks just go into like I'm just gonna write a whole bunch of stuff about the topic. Like, no, stop that immediately. That is not what you want to do. You actually want to be more systematic in your approach to writing your lit review. Again, there has been a conversation going on your topic. Your goal with the lit review is to say what the conversation is, what you plan to do as a result of that conversation, and how does your topic actually change the conversation. Again, it becomes very easy to do. And what I say for a lot of folks, if you're having difficulty with this, sometimes it's to diagram it out and use headers at first. Like write out the main topics of your lit review and see how do they fit? Do they capture the whole conversation in my lit review area in my subject matter? If not, then you might be missing a piece. If so, that becomes your themes and you just literally write up each theme and you kind of tie it all together. Again, this is something that we do it in the Velocity Group Coaching Program. On the strategy, I teach you what we call the UTIP process to write lit reviews. And once you understand the UTIP process, it makes it so much easier and you get very good at really crafting a tight, sound lit review. And Cindy, you say your topic is about burnout and professional women of color post-COVID. Oh, that's a great topic. I don't know if you haven't already, Cindy, like if you have some thoughts about it already, start writing up some LinkedIn content and putting it out there because this is something that's a hot topic right now, and folks are just experiencing this professional burnout. It's for real. I see it every day in higher education. Again, what other questions do folks have? And folks are just joining on, we're just talking about the journey that I had in order to get off the dissertation struggle bus. So if you are on the struggle bus right now, in the comment, put what you're struggling with and let's talk about it. Or if you have a question, let's chat about it. And again, I'll stay on if folks have questions. And thank you to folks who are just tuning in on Instagram as well. And again, my message for you all today is that you don't have to go through this process alone. You can indeed get the support that you need to get through this process. And again, if you don't have a support system, you need to start creating one immediately, because this process is not the one I would recommend to go through alone. It's just very difficult to do so. Not impossible, but difficult. And I think one of the advantages of the Velocity Group coaching program is that we created a scholarly community. So not only are you getting support to get through your dissertation process, but you are in community with people who are going to go on to become those deans, go on to become those professors, who are really going to have those top positions that really can help you provide you support to get through the process. So you can see that, oh, there's students that are ahead of me and this is how they got ahead of me, but there are also students behind that I'm going to help bring along. And I think having that community is essential to getting through the dissertation process. And what I would ask, if you all found value in today's video, if you can, share it with at least 2 other people that you know are on the dissertation struggle bus right now that could benefit from this on whatever platform you're seeing this on. Because again, I want to get this message out to people that there's no need to go through this dissertation process alone, and getting some support could be the difference from you finishing or being in student loan debt with no degree to show for it for a lot of us. And I'm just reviewing, seeing if there are any questions on Instagram. I don't see any there. If there are any questions on Facebook, we're on YouTube and LinkedIn. If there are any questions, go ahead and drop them in. If not, I'll let you all go for the evening. And what I hope you all do is tune in next week. I'll jump on around the same time, about 8:30 next week, and we'll have another conversation about another aspect of the dissertation process. Again, I want you all to learn a little bit from my story to know how I came to starting the Done Dissertation, but then also the journey that I had as a scholar, and just to know that you aren't alone. I literally have gone through all the phases, from being a terrible writer to being someone who had to really study, then to someone who really took the time to then help others become better writers. And then what I found is that when I started helping other people, I became sharper. And again, it was this iterative process over and over again. And it got so much easier to get through the dissertation process. And literally by the time I wrote my dissertation, I wrote from beginning to end, including collecting my data, in 7 months. And this is the thing I teach folks in my program. There's no need to be in this thing long. We can get you in and out in a year or less. If you do all the work you're supposed to do, I can assure you that we can get you out of the dissertation process in 1 year or less. But all you have to do is invest in yourself and really take the opportunity to say, I need help and support, and I'm going to seek community in order to get that support. And that's what we have with the Velocity Group coaching program. So if you're interested, visit www.velocitydissertation.com to learn more about our program. And if you are interested, apply, because we are recruiting right now for the January cohort. And I promise you, once seats fill up, we only take a certain number of students because we don't want the group to be too big. And once we take them, we close it off. And the next time you'll be able to work with us will be sometime in May. So again, if you've been in the dissertation process for years, there's no need to do that anymore. We have your solution. So make sure that you visit us at www.velocitydissertation.com to learn more about how we can help you get your dissertation done. I see we have Miss Charm Lewis on Instagram. How you doing? Thank you for tuning in. Any questions do you have? And on Facebook or LinkedIn, anybody have any questions? Well, as always, if you do have anything, feel free to shoot me a DM, shoot me a message, let me know how I could be of help, how we can be of help. But let's ensure that you get your dissertation done and don't go through this process alone. Again, we have a great solution for you if you're looking to get your dissertation done in a year or less. So if you want to be longer and extend the process out, we are not the right people to work with. We want folks who act quickly, who are about execution, who are about getting on these doctoral programs so you can transfer into organizations, communities, and people that you care most about. So if you're about that life, we want to work with you, and let's talk. So make sure that you come to www.velocitydissertation.com. Check out the page, read the whole page through so you can find out exactly what the entire program is about. We lay everything out for you. And then if you find, oh, this looks good, you're interested, apply so that we can learn more and talk more about how we can help you get your dissertation done. So with that, I'm Dr. Ramon Goings. I want to say thank you all so much for tuning in. And if you have any questions, please shoot me a DM on whatever platform you're watching this on. And I look forward to seeing you all next week when we talk about another aspect of the dissertation process. Take care, everybody.